The cold metal cell smelled of rust and old blood. Sparks from damaged conduits flickered across the walls, casting shadows that danced like hungry ghosts. Yarrick Cole stepped inside, his boots echoing loudly in the silent corridor. He had been thrown into this place without explanation, stripped of weapons, and left with only a small medkit strapped to his belt. Around him the air was heavy, almost alive, and the temperature seemed to drop with each step. At the center of the cell lay a dragon. Not a small creature but a massive, dark-scaled terror with eyes that glowed like molten metal. Its wings were folded against its back, and its claws scraped the floor whenever it shifted. Rumors called this dragon Obsidian Fong, the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Entire fleets had been lost to its fire. Colonies had vanished without a trace. The thought of it should have made Yarrick freeze in terror, but strangely he did not. The dragon lifted its head and regarded him. Its gaze was sharp, intelligent, and cold. Most who looked into those eyes saw only death. Yarrick saw something else, pain. He crouched slightly, careful not to make sudden movements. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to breathe slowly. The dragon's scales were chipped and scarred. Its wings had tears and dark streaks of blood marred its hide. The guards had made a mistake. They assumed Yarrick would fight, scream, or panic. They had even set sensors to record every moment, thinking the galaxy would enjoy his inevitable death. But Yarrick had trained for situations worse than this. He was a combat medic and he had survived impossible missions. The human instinct to heal was stronger than fear. He scanned the dragon's injuries with his eyes. Some were old, some fresh, and some looked infected. The dragon growled low in its throat, a warning, but it did not move closer. It had been trapped for days, starved and hurt, and it was ready to attack anything. Yarrick slowly reached into his medkit. He did not touch the dragon yet, he only prepared bandages and antiseptic. Every movement was deliberate, careful. He whispered under his breath, though he knew the dragon could not understand. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon's eyes narrowed. It sniffed the air, sensing no weapons, no threat, only the faint scent of human blood from a wound Yarrick had ignored earlier. The cell was silent except for the hum of failing machinery and the dragon's shallow breathing. Yarrick's hands moved quickly, cleaning a deep gash along the dragon's foreleg with a cloth. The dragon flinched once, then froze. It had expected pain, but the touch was careful, precise, almost gentle. Hours passed. Yarrick did not eat, did not sleep. He treated every wound he could reach, talking softly. "You've been hurt by others. I know. I can help." The dragon watched him. At first it was suspicion, then curiosity. Slowly it lowered its massive head closer. A spark of trust appeared, tiny but undeniable. Yarrick noticed the change in its breathing, less tense, less angry. Outside the cell, the guards whispered among themselves. "He can't survive in there," one said. "The dragon will tear him apart." But sensors showed the opposite. The human moved with calm, precision, and the dragon did not attack. Instead, it allowed him to clean its wounds. The guards frowned. This was not supposed to happen. No one survives Obsidian Fong. Yarrick worked through the night. He wrapped bandages around claws that had torn through enemy ships. He applied antiseptic to burns caused by energy blasts. Every action was slow, careful, deliberate. He did not look at the cameras. He did not care about fame or glory. His only concern was the living creature in front of him, terrifying as it was. By morning the dragon's posture had changed. Its wings were relaxed, its tail still. Yarrick's hands were scratched, cut, and bleeding, but he ignored the pain. He had a small smile for the first time in days. "There. That's better." The dragon tilted its head as if understanding. It had never been touched like this, never treated like a patient. The human had done the impossible. He had entered a tomb meant to kill, and instead of dying he began saving a monster. Then came the first sound of movement outside the cell. The guards were restless, whispering orders and checking the sensors. They could not understand what they were seeing. The dragon stirred, not in anger but in a cautious way. It did not leave Yarrick, nor did it make a sound except for low, cautious breaths. Yarrick looked at the dragon and spoke quietly, almost to himself. "You are not alone here. Not anymore." The creature's eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light, seemed to soften. Something had shifted in the cell. What the galaxy had expected to be a moment of horror, a human crushed by a deadly beast, was instead becoming something new. A connection, fragile but real, had begun to form. The cell, once a tomb, was no longer only a trap. It was a beginning. Outside, watchers doubted their sensors. Inside, a human and a dragon faced each other not as hunter and prey, but as patient and healer. And neither of them could yet understand how far this bond would reach, or how the galaxy would remember this day forever. The human had not only survived the night, he had changed the rules of fear. In the dark and silent cell, history quietly began with a man who would not fight and a dragon who would not kill. The sun of the alien fortress barely reached the cell, leaving everything in dull gray light. Yarrick had slept little, and his body ached from injuries he had ignored while treating the dragon. He woke to the sound of the creature shifting beside him. Obsidian Fang's scales scraped against the metal floor, making a harsh, grinding noise. But instead of attacking, it simply watched him with cautious eyes. Yarrick stretched slowly, careful not to startle the dragon. He cleaned the blood and dirt from his hands and inspected the dragon's wounds again. The creature's breathing was heavy but less erratic than the first day. Its eyes flicked toward him when he moved, almost as if waiting for him to act. The human noticed something. Despite its size and ferocity, the dragon seemed hesitant to hurt him. Outside, the guards whispered to each other, still confused. "How is he still alive?" one muttered. Obsidian Fang would have torn him apart in minutes. The sensors showed the opposite. Yarrick was alive and the dragon was calm. The galaxy had seen warriors crushed by this monster before, but here was a human, unarmed, tending to its wounds. Yarrick took a deep breath. He did not fear the dragon, but he did not trust it blindly. He had learned that creatures like this could switch from calm to deadly in seconds. He placed antiseptic on the dragon's tail, and it flinched slightly. He froze, letting the creature adjust. Slowly it lowered its tail. Yarrick murmured, "Good. That's good." The dragon's growl rumbled in its chest, but it did not move toward him. It had been trapped for days, starved and beaten by humans who wanted to break it. Yarrick understood that the dragon's attacks were not just instinct, they were pain and fear. He did not judge it. He treated it. That simple act confused the dragon more than any human weapon ever could. Hours passed in silence except for the scraping of claws and the hiss of the human's medkit opening. Yarrick cleaned burns and dressed wounds, talking softly the whole time. "I know it hurts," he whispered. "But I can help you." His words were simple, but they carried something the dragon had never felt: concern without threat. By midday, Obsidian Fang had stopped moving as much. It tilted its massive head, letting Yarrick work without resistance. The human noticed that some of the dragon's injuries were old scars from battles and traps, while others were fresh cuts and burns from capture. He carefully treated each one, using cloth to stop bleeding and antiseptic to prevent infection. The dragon's breathing became steadier. It no longer flared its nostrils or snapped at Yarrick. The human had not fought, not shouted, not tried to dominate. He had simply acted as a healer. The creature's instincts told it to kill, yet it did not. Confused, it lowered its body, almost bowing in submission. Outside, the guards argued. "Why isn't it attacking?" one demanded. "It should kill him instantly. That's how it survives." Another shook his head. "This human? I don't understand. He should be dead. But the dragon is calm. Too calm." No one could explain it. In their experience, dragons never forgave. Yarrick moved closer to the dragon, cautiously checking its claws. He noticed that one was fractured, and he used strips of cloth and wire from his medkit to splint it. The dragon hissed but did not strike. It seemed almost curious about the human's careful hands, the way they worked without fear. He spoke quietly, "You've been hurt by people who should have cared. I'm not like them. I want to help, not fight." The dragon tilted its head, its glowing eyes tracking every movement. There was no aggression now, only wariness. For the first time, someone entered its space without trying to dominate or destroy. The day wore on. Yarrick did not eat or drink, focusing entirely on the dragon. Its breathing grew more regular, and it even lowered its head, exposing a burn on its chest. He treated it with antiseptic, whispering encouragement. The creature flinched at first, then relaxed. Slowly, a bond was forming, fragile and new, built on trust and care. By evening, Yarrick's hands were cut and bruised, but the dragon was calmer than it had ever been in captivity. Its eyes followed him, and it allowed him to approach without flaring its nostrils. It did not attack, did not roar. It simply watched, learning something it had never known: a human who would not fight. The sensors outside recorded everything. The guards could not believe their eyes. A human and a dragon, alone in a cell meant to be a death trap, were sitting together without violence. Some whispered that it was impossible. Others began to worry. If the dragon survives this without killing him, what does that say about us? Yarrick looked at Obsidian Fang and felt something he did not expect. Respect. Not fear, not hatred, but a deep understanding. The dragon was not a mindless beast. It was intelligent, wounded, and scared. And it was learning that not all humans were the same. As night fell, the fortress lights dimmed. Yarrick settled near the dragon, exhausted but alert. The dragon curled its massive body in a protective way, not attacking, not threatening, simply existing beside him. For the first time in days it seemed almost at peace. The guards outside were still watching, still confused. Their orders had been simple: keep the human alive long enough to see the dragon kill him. But that plan had failed. The human was not fighting and the dragon was not killing. Something entirely new was happening, and the galaxy would never forget the strange day when the most dangerous dragon in the universe allowed a human to live. Inside the cell, Yarrick whispered one last time before sleep, "We'll get through this. Together." Obsidian Fang's eyes glimmered faintly in response. The bond had begun. Neither the human nor the dragon fully understood it yet, but it had started. And from that bond, everything would change. The cell was quiet again, but the silence was different this time. Yarrick sat cross-legged near Obsidian Fang, who was lying down with its head resting on folded claws. The dragon's breathing was steady, almost calm, and it no longer hissed or snapped at every movement. Yarrick carefully cleaned a small cut on its snout, noting the deep scars that ran across its face. These were not wounds from battle, they were marks of cruelty. Yarrick whispered softly, "You've been hurt by more than war. People wanted to break you." The dragon tilted its head, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. It did not move, but Yarrick could feel it listening. He had seen enough battlefields to know that fear and pain could change a creature, or a person, forever. And this dragon had been changed in ways the galaxy had never acknowledged. Outside the cell, the guards were growing restless. Reports from sensors showed something impossible. The dragon had stopped attacking entirely. One officer muttered to another, "It's cooperating?" The other shook his head. "That is not possible. Obsidian Fang does not cooperate. It kills. It destroys." They argued, but no one had an answer. Yarrick moved to examine the dragon's wings. They were tattered and scarred, some membranes torn and some bones injured. He carefully pressed along the edges, checking for broken parts. The dragon flinched slightly but did not strike. Slowly, it seemed to understand that Yarrick's hands meant care, not harm. While working, Yarrick noticed something in the dragon's eyes. A memory, a story. He had seen it in other creatures that had survived trauma. They remembered every betrayal, every strike, every moment of pain. Obsidian Fang had lived for hundreds of years, but what it remembered most was not battle. It was suffering inflicted by those who claimed to protect the galaxy. Yarrick whispered, "They lied to everyone. You were never a monster. They made you one." The dragon's breathing slowed, and it seemed to watch him with attention. For the first time, the truth of its life, the cruelty it had endured, the fear it had felt, was being recognized by another being. Recognition mattered. The dragon's fury was not mindless, it was pain that had no voice. He paused and examined the dragon's chest burn. The wound was deep, old, and poorly treated by whoever had captured it. He cleaned the injury, careful not to hurt it further. "You didn't deserve this," he said softly. "No one deserves this." The dragon's glowing eyes followed every motion, almost as if it understood, even if it could not speak the words. As he worked, Yarrick realized why the galaxy had feared Obsidian Fang so much. It was not just strength or firepower. It was knowledge. The dragon remembered betrayals, it remembered every failed attack, and it remembered the humans who had caused its suffering. And yet it had survived. Alone, hunted, and betrayed, it had endured. The galaxy had buried the truth. Obsidian Fang had never been the monster they claimed. The monster had been the people who used it. Outside the cell, the guards monitored the sensors nervously. "It isn't attacking him." "Why not?" one asked. "It's almost like it's..." another began. The first shook his head. "No. That's impossible. The dragon does not reason. It kills." They did not see the truth forming inside the cell, that the dragon was learning trust, learning care, learning something it had never been taught: mercy. Yarrick finished dressing the final wound he could reach and sat back, letting the dragon rest. "You've survived because you are smart," he said quietly. "And you've survived because you've been hurt by people who didn't understand you. But you're not alone anymore. You're not trapped and you're not hated, not by me." The dragon blinked slowly, a gesture almost human. It shifted closer, resting its massive head near Yarrick's side. The human could feel its heartbeat beneath the scales. It was powerful, steady, and wounded. He had never felt such life so close and so dangerous at the same time. And yet there was no threat, only presence. He realized the galaxy had buried its fear in lies. Obsidian Fang had been feared because no one cared to understand it. Its violence had been survival, not malice. Jarek's mind drifted to the stories he had heard in the military, of dragons captured, controlled, and forced to fight in wars not their own. He thought of the colonies destroyed, the ships lost, the fleets burned. And he understood that Obsidian Fang had been labeled dangerous not because of what it had done, but because of what others had made it do. The galaxy remembered the destruction, but it had forgotten the cause. People think you're a weapon, Yarok whispered. But you're alive because you are more than that. You are a creature who can feel, who can survive, who can remember. And because of that, you are not alone anymore. The dragon shifted slightly, resting its claw near Jarek's knee. It did not attack. It did not flinch. It simply allowed him to be near. The day passed in quiet observation. Yarok spoke softly, recounting small things, pointing to wounds and explaining how they might heal. The dragon listened, following the sounds, the hands, the gentle motions. For the first time in its long life, it felt understanding rather than fear. By nightfall, a subtle change had occurred. Obsidian Fang was calmer, its eyes less angry, its breathing even. Jarek's hands were scratched and bloodied, but he did not care. They had reached a fragile understanding, human and dragon, patient and healer, trapped together yet forming a bond that no one outside could comprehend. Outside, the guards whispered with growing fear. It's obeying him, one said uncertain. No, it's not obeying. It's... Another trailed off. Their words failed to capture the truth. Obsidian Fang was not obeying. It was learning, and it was recognizing the human as someone different from all the others who had caused it pain. Yarok finally leaned back against the cold wall. He did not know what would happen tomorrow. He did not know if the galaxy could accept the truth he had uncovered. But inside the cell, something had changed forever. Obsidian Fang was no longer just a weapon or a monster. It was a living creature who had been betrayed, hurt, and feared. And it had begun to trust. The human had uncovered the buried truth of the galaxy. Sometimes survival was not about fighting. Sometimes it was about understanding. And in this dark, forgotten cell, history had quietly begun to shift. The cell door shuddered open with a loud clang that echoed down the dark corridors. Sparks flew from broken circuits, and the smell of ozone filled the air. Yarok looked up, alert. The guards outside were not coming to help, they were coming to kill. He could see their shadows moving through the glass panels. Obsidian Fang lifted its massive head, nostrils flaring, muscles tensing like coiled steel. Yarok did not reach for a weapon. There was none. He simply stood, hands raised, and whispered, "Stay calm. Don't let them force you." The dragon's eyes met his. In that moment they understood each other perfectly. Obsidian Fang's body trembled, not with fear but with readiness. It was prepared to defend, not destroy. The guards inside the control room shouted orders. Flush them. Kill them both. The human cannot survive. Energy weapons hummed, charging across the corridor. Yarok flinched as the first pulse hit the cell wall, but he did not move toward the dragon. Instead he stayed in the open, showing the dragon he meant no harm. Obsidian Fang growled, low and terrifying, and the human felt the vibration through the floor. The guards fired again. Sparks flew as beams hit the metal around them. The dragon's wings stretched, massive membranes catching the flickering lights. It roared, a sound that shook the walls, louder than any warning. Then it acted. The dragon lunged, not toward Yarok but at the incoming weapons. It twisted its body, deflecting energy blasts with its scales. The guards fired more, but the dragon's movement was too fast, too precise. It used its claws to smash control panels, cutting off some of the energy streams. Sparks rained down like fireflies in a storm. Yarok ducked under a falling conduit, keeping low. He shouted, "Now. Move." Obsidian Fang shifted closer, sweeping a path clear of debris. The dragon's roar echoed down the corridors, a terrifying sound, but there was no anger directed at Yarok. Instead, it nudged him gently with its massive head as if urging him forward. The human scrambled, following the creature's lead. They were moving together now, not as prisoner and captive but as allies. The corridor opened to a larger chamber, partially destroyed in earlier battles. The guards tried to intercept them, firing from behind metal barriers. Obsidian Fang responded with precise strikes. Its claws shattered walls and doors, but it avoided hitting Yarok. The human's heart pounded, but he kept up, bandaging his own scratches quickly as they moved. He spoke to the dragon softly, "Keep going. Almost there." One of the energy beams grazed Jarek's shoulder, burning through his jacket. He winced but did not fall. Obsidian Fang swung its tail, knocking a group of guards off balance. Their weapons clattered to the floor. The dragon's movements were fluid, terrifying, and protective. It had learned the human's rhythm. It knew where he would step next. At the edge of the chamber, a secondary hatch led to an open platform. The night sky was visible, dark with distant stars. Yarrick realized they were near the fortress edge. He glanced at the dragon, whose glowing eyes reflected the lights from above. The creature paused, wings stretching wide, muscles coiled for a final leap. "They're going to kill us if we don't leave now," Yarrick whispered. He climbed carefully onto the dragon's back, gripping the ridges along its spine. The dragon let him, folding its massive wings slightly to balance him. Then it leapt. The force of the jump threw Yarrick forward, but he held tight. The wind roared around them, but the dragon's strength carried them upward, out of the chamber, out of the fortress. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly. The fortress lights grew smaller below them. Obsidian Fang flew with power unmatched, leaving destruction behind but not harming Yarrick. The human could feel the dragon's heartbeat under his hands, strong, steady, alive. It was incredible, terrifying but alive. Below, alarms blared across the fortress. The guards scrambled, unable to follow. They had expected the dragon to escape or kill Yarrick, but not protect him. It defied all logic. Their sensors showed the impossible, human and dragon together, moving as one. The galaxy would not understand this moment. They had never seen care between predator and prey like this. Yarrick spoke softly over the wind. "You did it. We're free." The dragon's eyes flickered with something almost like acknowledgement. It banked sharply, changing direction toward a hidden canyon below. The wind rushed past Yarrick's face, and for the first time in days he felt exhilaration, not fear. He had survived the fortress, survived the dragon, and survived himself. They landed in a rocky canyon far from the fortress. Obsidian Fang curled around Yarrick protectively, watching the horizon. Yarrick carefully climbed down, checking his injuries. Cuts and bruises were painful, but they were nothing compared to what they had survived together. The dragon lowered its head, letting him inspect the wounds along its foreleg one last time. "Rest," Yarrick said quietly. "We're safe at least for now." The dragon shifted slightly closer, folding its wings. It was calm but ready. The night sky stretched above, full of stars that did not judge or betray. For a moment, human and dragon simply existed together, neither dominant, neither afraid. In the distance, the fortress loomed, its lights still searching, still angry. But Yarrick knew they had changed something. The human who had been thrown into a tomb with the galaxy's most dangerous dragon had survived, and the dragon had chosen to protect him. This bond, forged in pain and trust, was impossible to break. Yarrick touched the dragon's snout gently. "The galaxy will never believe this," he whispered. The dragon blinked slowly, a gesture of acknowledgement. Together they had faced fire, death, and betrayal, and they had survived. And neither the human nor the dragon would ever forget the night they escaped the cell meant to be a tomb. As they rested in the canyon, the first hints of dawn painted the sky. For the first time, Yarrick allowed himself to hope. The fortress was behind them, danger still out there, but alive meant they could fight another day. And perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy would learn a lesson about fear, trust, and what humans were truly capable of. Yarrick woke to the soft light of dawn spilling across the canyon. Obsidian Fang lay curled beside him, massive wings folded, eyes half closed but alert. The fortress they had escaped still burned in the distance, a reminder of what they had survived. Yarrick stretched, checking his injuries. They were painful but not deadly. He looked at the dragon and smiled faintly. They were alive. Against all odds they had survived. The human knew they could not stay here forever. The galaxy would not forget what had happened inside that cell. Word would spread, rumors, warnings, tales of the impossible. But that did not scare him. He trusted Obsidian Fang. They had fought together, protected each other, and learned that trust could survive even the most impossible conditions. Yarrick reached for his medkit and treated his cuts one last time. Then he turned to the dragon, speaking softly. "We need to go somewhere they cannot find us. Somewhere safe." The dragon shifted its massive head, eyes glowing faintly. It understood. Together, they began walking through the rocky canyon toward a hidden path Yarrick had spotted during their landing. As they moved, he thought about what had happened. The galaxy had feared this dragon for centuries. Entire fleets had been destroyed, colonies lost, and humans had always assumed dragons were unstoppable killers. But Yarrick had seen the truth. Obsidian Fang was not a mindless weapon. It was intelligent, hurt, and capable of understanding. And humanity had shown it mercy. News of their escape spread faster than Yarrick could imagine. At first, the reports were disbelief. A human survived Obsidian Fong? Commanders whispered in fear. Impossible. But witnesses came forward. Scouts who had seen the fortress burn, sensors that had recorded the dragon protecting the human. The story was spreading. The galaxy began to notice that something extraordinary had happened. Yarrick knew the story would be told in many ways. Some would call it luck, some would call it chaos. But those who understood would see the truth. Humans were not just fighters, they were thinkers, healers, and survivors. They could enter a tomb meant for death and turn it into a place of trust. They could face a creature the galaxy called a monster and teach it mercy. Obsidian Fong had changed too. The dragon had been cruelly misunderstood, forced into violence by those who feared it. But now it had learned that not all humans were the same. Some could care. Some could heal. Some could survive the impossible and do so without hatred or weapons. The bond they shared would last a lifetime, and it would leave a mark on the galaxy's memory. As days passed, Yarrick and the dragon traveled across hidden paths, avoiding detection. He treated the dragon's injuries with care, and the dragon protected him in return. They were not just allies, they were companions. The galaxy had never seen such a pairing before, human and dragon, surviving together against all odds. Word of their escape reached the military academies, the councils, and even distant colonies. They studied the recordings of the cell, the escape, and the dragon's unusual behavior. The conclusion was clear. Humanity had done something extraordinary. They had shown that bravery was not only about fighting, it was about understanding, healing, and protecting life even when it seemed impossible. Yarrick and Obsidian Fong eventually found a hidden valley, far from the eyes of the galaxy. There the dragon could rest and Yarrick could recover fully. The valley was quiet, full of life, and untouched. They spent days observing the stars, reflecting on what had happened, and understanding the bond that had saved them both. The galaxy outside still feared the dragon, but inside this valley there was peace. The story of the human combat medic and the galaxy's most dangerous dragon became legend. Children on distant planets heard it, soldiers studied it, and leaders remembered it. It was a story not of fear but of trust, courage, and the surprising power of a human heart. Humanity had entered a place of death and turned it into survival. Humanity had taught a dragon mercy. Humanity had changed the galaxy's understanding of life. Yarrick knew they could never return to the fortress. But he did not care. They had survived and that was enough. Obsidian Fong lowered its massive head, allowing Yarrick to rest against its scales. The stars stretched above them, silent witnesses to the bond that had formed in a cell meant for death. Over time the galaxy began to change subtly. Policies toward dragons shifted. War strategies were reconsidered. People realized that understanding and compassion could achieve what weapons never could. The tale of a human and a dragon showed that even in a galaxy filled with fear and violence, one person could make a difference. One human could change the course of history, not with power but with care. Yarrick looked at the dragon, eyes reflecting the starlight. "We survived," he whispered. Obsidian Fong blinked slowly, its massive body relaxed but alert. Together they had faced death, betrayal, and fear, and together they had survived. And the galaxy would never forget it. The legend of the human who entered the cell of the most dangerous dragon, and the dragon who chose to protect the human, spread across stars, fleets, and colonies. Generations would speak of it, reminding all beings that bravery was not only in fighting but in mercy. That trust could overcome fear, and that one human could teach the galaxy what it meant to be truly strong. The cell that was meant to be a tomb had instead become the beginning of a story the galaxy would never forget. And in the hidden valley beneath the stars, a human and a dragon rested, knowing they had changed history forever.